Hey people, it is Saturday, October the 21st. The time is 4:30 in the afternoon. It's currently 11 degrees Celsius, and I am at Eglinton West Station. Just watching a train pull into the station, a northbound train, here on line 1. There's a look to the north. I thought I would catch a southbound train coming in, but no luck yet. But I'm going to make my way out of the station up onto Eglinton Avenue, and then I thought I'd take a walk along Eglinton Avenue West heading east. And there goes the train. And still no sign of a southbound train. I thought that would have been a cool shot, but let's make our way out of the station and I'll begin my walk along Eglinton Avenue. I thought along the way we would take a look at some of the new stations that are all but complete for the new Line 5 Eglinton Crosstown, which is the newest underground rapid transit line, which is yet to open. And as of now, there's really no set date as to when that opening might actually take place. And let me just adjust my keys in my pocket so that they don't jingle. I've heard that before in other videos. But as I was saying, the stations, I think, are pretty much all complete and ready to go. And here comes that train now. And I think much of the construction that was turning Eglinton Avenue into a cluster F over the last several years is largely all cleaned up now. We are. There's Eglinton Avenue. So that's the direction we'll be going, east. But before that, let's just take a quick peek over here. You have the future Cedarville station of the Eglinton Crosstown on that side of Eglinton. And the main entrance is over here, kitty corner. just get a close-up look at it.
Yeah.
And it looks basically complete, as I think most of the other stations are that we'll see as I start walking eastward. But when will this fencing come down, and when will we finally be able to set foot inside and ride the train along Eglinton? It's anyone's guess at this time, I think. For now, you have to make do with the Eglinton bus. And the usual insane traffic coming off of the Allen Expressway, which ends here at Eglinton. From this point on, expressway traffic has to take surface streets. And you can see a difference in the station architecture, comparing the old Eglinton West design to the more modern look of the future stations here. Bus pulling into Eglinton West Station. You can transfer from the train to the bus directly without having to pay another fare. I thought ahead and decided if I was going to be recording a video at this time of day, I was going to make sure I'm walking east and not west, as the lighting when I walk west at this time is horrible. Everything looks all dark and murky as the sun starts getting low in the sky. All these cars are going onto the expressway. At one time it was intended for the Allen Road, or as it was then called, the Spadina Expressway, to continue on south into the heart of the city, running through historic neighborhoods along the way. But thankfully that was stopped by some community activists. They would have eventually gone right down through Chinatown and probably obliterated much of that neighborhood. And here's another Cedarvale entrance here. I think Jane Jacobs, who was living in Toronto at the time when the opposition to the Spadina Expressway grew, was a big part of that opposition. So just to the west behind me is the Little Jamaica neighborhood. And I have done some videos of that area in previous walks, but we're going to be heading through a couple of other neighborhoods along Eglinton Avenue here as we head east. This is called Upper Village. And it's a fairly prosperous area with pretty healthy retail along Eglinton. It's sort of the northern end of Forest Hill, which is a wealthy neighborhood, of course. You could say this is the main retail strip for Forest Hill residents to come and do lots of their shopping and other business. Forest Hill Village itself does have a small retail strip, but it's quite tiny. I think a lot of this area was built up around 100 years ago or so. It's just old enough to have a somewhat historic look to it. This is a lovely old building here. The village shul dedicated by the Dan family. There's a large Jewish community in the area. Forest Hill is known for its long-standing Jewish community. It's pretty windy today. And lots of traffic on Eglinton right now. I suppose it is rush hour. And in the summertime, this stretch is lined with outdoor patios and can be quite lively into the evenings even. It looks like all the patio seating has been packed away for the year. And the residential neighborhoods surrounding are quite lovely. Heavy tree canopy, very large and expensive homes, many of which are quite historic in keeping with the age of the area. But also lots of new modern builds have been replacing some of the older homes. This is an interesting storefront here. Too bad it's a real estate office and not something more fun. And we got some mid-rise infill along Eglinton. And up ahead as well. That one's a little taller. Of course, once you get to Yonge and Eglinton, that's where the high density makes itself apparent. In the heart of Midtown, you'll find a cluster of very tall towers. It's a well-known bagel shop across the street. And another one here. Closed. Come back. At another time. There does seem to be a lot of closed shops, given that it's a Saturday, I suppose, but it's not even 5 o'clock yet. We got some vacancy. Oh, I walked right past a future station, Forest Hill Station, right here. I was keeping an eye out for it, but it blended in with the with the street wall that I barely noticed it. LRV testing underway. So I assume that means trains are running through the station in testing mode. So there we go, future Forest Hill Station. At least these new stations on Eglinton don't wipe out an entire block of existing storefronts. I've noticed that seems to be the case with the Ontario line running through downtown along Queen and King. Seems like large blocks of storefronts are being obliterated to make way for some new stations there. And I guess this is the other entrance to future Forest Hill Station. This one's a little more prominent. I wonder if there'll be one across the street as well. But I've seen video of the interior of the stations along here, and they are basically complete. Some of these old Art Deco apartment buildings lining the street for a few blocks here. I'm a big fan of these style of older apartments. Forest Hill Manor is the name of this one. And this one is not quite as interesting in its design, but it still has some character. This one is great here. I like those windows that literally wrap around the corner. If I step out into the street a little bit, you can see right down to Yonge and Eglinton where the tall towers are. I imagine the rents are on the high side given the location of these buildings, and they do have a bit of an air of prestige to them. This one's just called the Eglinton. I imagine some people who are quite elderly live in these buildings, who have probably lived there for decades and are paying very inexpensive rent due to rent control. Of course, if you were to move in to a newly vacant unit, it would be a different story. It's a nice rooftop garden, or patio, I suppose. Very nice. And here's Forest Hill Collegiate Institute, the local high school. And the local library branch. Very nice mid-century building. And this is one of my favorites of the old apartment buildings here. Shaughnessy. In a way, this reminds me a little bit of Avenue Road. Kind of on the other side of Forest Hill to the south. It also has a number of grand older apartment buildings. And it's a very high-priced area as well. This one is a not as old building and quite lacking in some of the flair of those ones we walked past earlier. This is when the age of boxy apartment buildings started spreading all over Toronto in the 1950s and into the 60s and 70s. But they did provide much needed housing during a very booming period in the city. And many of them hold up pretty well to this day, despite their utilitarian, somewhat Soviet look in some cases. Some of the taller ones are jokingly referred to as commie blocks, and you'll find those throughout the city, especially in the post-war areas of the city. Huge clusters of them will be found. And Yonge and Eglinton up ahead actually has a number of them as well. And is developed as a high-density node starting in the 1950s. That's a nice message. This one's called The Chaplain. Another sort of uninspired design, but probably a pretty nice place to live. I bet you the units are spacious and solidly constructed. Likewise across the street. And speaking of Chaplin, here's Chaplin Station. At Chaplin Crescent. All the stations have a very similar design, as you probably have noticed. Another station just ready to go into service. I'm sure if they decided to start running the trains tomorrow, this station would just spring into action. I don't think there's anything left to be done. The Eglinton Way. So I think we're entering a new neighborhood designation here. So this might be a good place for me to start wrapping up this video. and I'll continue along Eglinton in another video. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And also be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. If you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal, as well as via my merch store, or you can become a channel member. And you can also support the channel through a super thanks if you prefer. And you can find me on Instagram under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and thanks to the channel members. And be sure to keep checking back because, as always, I will continue.